Education is not just about going to school and getting a degree. It is about widening your knowledge and absorbing the truth of life. For every aspiring Christite preparing themselves to face the future world, we present to you DAKSH 2023. Members of the audience, a very good morning to one and all present here. Christ University is pleased to bring to you all the brand new edition of DAKSH, the annual flagship event of the university. I'm Rekha and I shall be the MC for today. DAKSH, the annual Education and Career Guidance Fair, hosted by the Student Council of Christ deemed to be university, is a one-stop destination for all things education. At DAKSH, you get to witness exclusive opportunities and imperative student guidance, acquire varied knowledge, and make informed choices regarding your education and your career. Without any further ado, we present to you today's session, Strategy for Charting Your Career and Key Execution Disciplines. We are beyond honored to have amidst us Mr. Harold D'Souza, our esteemed speaker for today. Mr. Harold D'Souza is the co-founder of Walkwater Executive Talent Advisory, one of the fastest growing executive search firms in the country with a track record across industry sectors. An experienced technology leader and entrepreneur with a passion for developing innovative solutions to solve complex business problems. Sir has extensive expertise in product management, business development, and leads teams from concept to launch. Sir started his career in the executive search industry in India in 1998 and has seen the industry grow, change, and evolve with companies like EY, Accord India, DHR International, before co-founding Walkwater Talent. Sir is passionate about helping organizations unlock their potential through the identification and development of talented leadership, and this passion for helping organizations achieve their goals is at the core of his success. A firm believer in the power of instinct in personal and professional life, Sir is an avid foodie, loves to cook and travel, a keen squash player. He's also a non-fiction book lover and owns a huge collection of books at his home in Bangalore. Sir, it is an absolute privilege to have you here with us at Christ deemed to be University, and I kindly request you to take the dais and enlighten our young minds with your words. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the kind words. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be here along with so many of you. And thank you for making time to come here and listen to a few things that I have to say. I think first of all, thank you to the students of the organizing committee and of Christ University, the management to invite me here to speak with you here today. A little bit about what I do before we begin, and I want this to be more of an interactive session while I have a prepared presentation. I think it's important to know a little bit about my journey and what I do for a living. I co-run a company called Walkwater Talent Advisors, as my friend has just told you. I started my journey in executive search in 1998 when the industry was not really known. It was known as recruitment, and in some cases it's also known as recruiting today. The difference between executive search and recruiting is that in executive search we only help companies find leaders, and all the work that I do is helping companies find CEOs and VPs and directors and business and functional leaders. That's the role that I do. That's what I do for a living, and that's what I've been doing for the last 25 years. The objective of speaking with an audience like yourself, and let me confess, I don't even know some of the full form of the acronyms of courses that you study. It's getting more and more complex day by day. some of the courses that you guys are studying and some of the stuff that you guys are studying. Back in our time, you know, when we got out of college, it was engineering or medicine or commerce or in some cases arts if you did very badly in school and college. I think the entire definition is really flipping now. So coming back to what I do, I work with companies across industry sectors, help them find business and functional leaders. And that has, over the last 25 years, led me through a series of experiences where I have been able to see careers and people really up close in terms of what makes them work, what makes them tick, what makes them successful, how they think through their careers, how they think through their career patterns, how they think through their lives, how they lead their lives. And I've been really up and close with some really successful people and some, you know, let's be honest, some really not so successful people. But over the last 25 years, I would have helped companies hire maybe more than, at the rate of 20 people a year, 500 odd people over so many years. And that, you know, in the course of that, meeting so many candidates, interviewing them, looking through thousands of resumes, and doing that day in and day in and day out, right? I will try and share some of that knowledge and experience with you. Maybe it will help you as you chart your career through the next 20 years or 30 years or 40 years that you have in your professional journeys in the corporate world. I have had the privilege of being in India at the most interesting phase of this country. You know, when I started working, it was the mid-90s when the economy was just opening up, and then there have been various cycles. So I've been in the thick of things as far as the economic growth of this country is concerned, and I consider myself privileged to have been exposed to so many of those experiences. Let me start. I would also, you know, request you to stop me wherever you have questions. Just put your hand up. I'll be happy to answer if I know. I'll be happy to take down the notes and come back to you if I don't know. So, yeah. This is what my company does a little bit, very quickly. CEO and board search, where we work with companies and identify board members or CEOs for their companies. Entrepreneurial services, where we work with startup entrepreneurs and help them hire people for their startups and companies that are emerging. We have a practice called Talent Core, which is for functional leaders and business leaders. We work very closely with private equity and venture capital funds and help them to find talent for their investee companies and for themselves. And we also have a separate diversity and inclusion practice, which is really today the need of the hour as far as India is concerned, as far as the world is concerned. This is the way we are, these are all the sectors that we operate in. We work in tech, we work in industrial energy and process, we work in consumer, in pharma life sciences, and in banking and financial services. A little bit of the Walkwater client universe. These are some of our most recent clients, and this is only technology. We of course work in all other sectors as well, but this is only technology, and a little bit of a microcosm of the clients that we currently work with or we have worked with in the most recent past. Now, I alluded to this a little bit. Clearly, I'm sure you have been hearing this, reading this, speaking about this among yourselves. The future is in India. If you look at the rest of the world, there are significant shifts towards our country in terms of where this economy is growing, in terms of the huge youthful demographic dividend that we have, all of you sitting here. We have the youngest population in the world. And it's a tremendous opportunity that is lying in front of all of us, you and me. And I think it's only up to us how do we leverage that and make the most of that. Clearly, contrary to perception, the growth is not only in tech. It is across industries. It's in manufacturing, it's in infrastructure, it's in life sciences, in pharma. And let me come to some of the new trends that are emerging because of this growth. For example, let me take a few examples. For example, there's digital transformation happening across all these industry sectors. And there's fintech that is reaching everywhere. Today, if you earn a certain salary, you can take a loan that is much bigger based on your credit history, sometimes even if you don't have a credit history. And that is really based on data and analytics. There are newer usage patterns. The internal combustion engine and the automobiles that were really driven by internal combustion engines might very fast become a thing of the past. And all of us might be driving electric vehicles. There are new customer segments. Nobody in this audience or me thought of ordering whatever we want in terms of food through an app. And they're new, we've all become customers of ready to order and ready to eat on an app. There are, apps for used cars. There are apps for used bikes. There is an increased spread of wealth across India. And that has really impacted how people travel. So if you look at airports, if you look at luxury travel, if you look at luxury spends, those are all new categories that have got created over the last 8-10 years in this country, and they never existed. I don't think there was any of us and our parents who ever thought of walking into a luxury store and buying a wallet which cost 50,000 rupees or a belt that cost 1 lakh rupees, but some of us, at least some of our parents, can do that now. And there's a focus on self. So there are a lot of health and wellness apps that are coming. There's clearly a lot of focus on rural and rural and agri as well. So there are a lot of agri-tech companies that are being launched. So this is a spread of development and progress that is happening across categories. And how do we as the student community, how do we as the youth really take advantage of this? What is important to understand, and this is a little bit from my experience, what is important to understand is that each industry brings with it a new skill. For example, if we talk about digital transformation in fintech, the new skill sets that are being developed there in terms of data and analytics, in terms of understanding the demographic spending patterns, in terms of understanding the salary patterns, the overall mathematics around that. So there is a math skill being developed there which was not there earlier at all. So that's a new skill that is coming, and these are examples I'm giving you from my experience. If you look at EV manufacturing, there are newer skills being created in EV manufacturing that were never there before, in terms of batteries, in terms of new energy management. There are skills being created in high-touch selling as far as the luxury industry is concerned. The customer experience that is needed for the luxury industry is very different than what is needed for other industries. So there are newer skill sets being created as far as customer experience and high-touch selling is concerned. And each of these industries realize will need marketeers, will need sellers, will need human resource professionals, will need finance and legal professionals, will need talent professionals. And it's important for us to first get the macroeconomic outlook understanding before really drilling down to what kind of skills and then charting our careers accordingly. The reason I'm giving you this macro picture is because I think we start from the economic environment, understand what skills are needed, and then map and chart our careers accordingly, and I'll come to that. A little bit about the history, and I spoke about this. Some of you might have read this, some of you might have been exposed to it in various media. This country really, kind of started opening up its economy in 1991, and where a lot of, companies came in, the share markets became more buoyant. In Y2K, which is 2000, there was this Y2K boom that led to a lot of the IT services companies being launched. And that was really the rise of IT services and BPO industry, and this city that you see around us today really mushroomed around that, right? A lot of the companies and Flipkarts of the world are not India's first startups. Infosys came, 20 years before that. And then there was the retail boom, and now you see the startup boom and the growth that is happening across sectors. In each phase, the youth of this country have been able to leverage the growth in these specific industries and able to make careers for themselves. So there's a certain category of people that grew in the BPO world. There's a certain category of people that grew in the IT services era. There's a certain category of people that grew in the telecom and retail era. But those opportunities were in a lot of areas limited to those particular sectors because the growth was in those particular sectors. But now the growth is across these sectors, and therefore the opportunities are fairly significant for your community at large. Now, what are some of the strategies that I have learned over the last 25 years of meeting people, analyzing them, placing them, understanding and working with companies in terms of charting your career? First and foremost is what I call understand, in terms of being self-aware of what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what kind of value systems, what kind of culture, what kind of industry segments. We've gone through a few industry segments till now. What kind of industry segments work for you and don't work for you. So being self-aware in terms of, really realizing what your own likes and dislikes are in terms of the industry. And I know that some of you might say, I don't have that much choice. I take what comes to me. But if you have a choice, then it's important first for you to understand what it is that drives you and what is it that really excites you and motivates you from looking at, from really moving to a career. Looking around and deciphering what the industry is going through. What are the areas and what are the various parts of the industry that are really growing. Identifying and looking at talent examples. And I'll take a few talent examples, a couple of them. I've brought out two very senior finance professionals who have charted their careers interestingly, and maybe you can glean a few learnings from those. Focus on where you want to reach. I mean, do you want to be, let's say, if you're a BCom student, do you want to do your CA and end up becoming a financial controller or a CFO in a company? Or do you want to become an entrepreneur? Where do you really want to reach? I think it's important to focus on that, have a big goal in front of you, but focus on the day-to-day disciplines. Note the success factors for each, plan and execute. And most importantly, one of the things I've learned from looking at very senior professionals who've succeeded in their careers are the people who've succeeded the most are the people who are prepared to fail and who are not scared of failure, who are consistently, learning from each failure and not getting dissuaded by that, but moving forward as they fail. It's important to also plan on a day-to-day basis in terms of what where you want to reach, what are some of the things you need to learn, what are the courses that you need to do. For example, if you want to go and join a bank, an investment bank, and there are a certain number of courses that you need to undertake to join that bank, then you analyze which college gives those best courses, where do you need to learn from, how much that costs, the other people who have gone to that college, where have they reached. So it's important to plan and analyze and execute your journey accordingly, have a big goal in front of you, but take those initial critical decisions. One of the examples, this is a senior finance person who's currently the CFO of Ola Electric. And if you see the way that he has charted his career, he started with Unilever after his CA in, I think, to 1994. So almost 30 years of experience. Unilever for around the first 9 years, really foundationally picking up the basics, and Unilever has this ability to put people in various functions. Then move to GE, which is a global company, then move to Vedanta, which is an Indian company, and then move to Ola Electric. So if you look at this example, this is an example of a career that is very structured in terms of 9 years in one place, 8 years in one place, 9 years in one place, and then moved somewhere else, right? So this is someone who's really thought through the career choices, someone who has, and then stayed there and not taken quick decisions in terms of how their career needs to be moved along. The initial foundation has been very strong. 9 years in Unilever, which really gave them a foundational experience in terms of what works, what doesn't work. But the way that this person has charted the career after that. The next example that you will see is of someone whose initial career choice has not been great, but then how she has been able to resolve that and then move forward and still reached a very interesting position in a very interesting company. And we will see some learnings from that. Now, this is a person who's currently the CIO for, CFO for Licious, and not so interesting career choices in the beginning of the career, and then, brought it back in an Alcobev company, became the CFO of that company, and then became the CFO of Licious. So these are two examples of very senior finance professionals who have different trajectories as far as their careers are concerned. And frankly, this topic, we can write a book on it, but what are some of the learnings from this? One is a classical, structured career, not too many job changes, someone whose resume you will look at and say, really strong CV. This is a career you will look at and say, okay, have made some quick moves, but has still reached a senior role in a fast-growing company like Licious, which is one of India's unicorns today. What are the learnings? Strong foundation helps. So if you have an education from a university of this nature, and then you go ahead and do your MBA or a CA, then it certainly helps you. And the brand and the background that you come from, the college that you come from, certainly does helps. Remember that initial choices are not always what drives your career growth. You might make some wrong choices initially. You might pick the wrong company when you join. But it doesn't mean that it's going to, doesn't mean that your career is not going to go the right path. The choice of brands are important. The choice of brands and growth. Can you move from one industry to the other? Can you make some choices at the initial start of your career, or maybe even at the later stage of your career, in terms of moving from one industry to the other, learning different skill sets, being exposed to different experiences, picking up global experience, moving to different geographies, and consistent growth. So both these examples that I've given you, in one case, the person moved, has been there for a long time, but consistent growth in those companies, has moved from a senior manager to a financial controller. So consistent growth helps. If you're stuck in a particular job for a long time in one company, it's time to move out. And clearly the devil is in the detail. When you look at a resume, when you look at a career, what it's not telling you is the daily grind and the daily rigor that these people have gone through to reach where they have reached. It's important to have a long-term goal, but I think it's therefore much more important to have short-term actions. The people I meet, the people who have reached CEOs, or they've reached C-level positions, or they've become very successful entrepreneurs, 99% of them follow a routine. They have a certain discipline, they have a certain structure to their life, they have a certain predictability to their daily life. They're exposed to various different learnings, but they also have a certain predictability. And it's their short-term actions, their incremental growth, that really leads them to the big exponential boom at the end of their career. A little bit about the startup universe. Now this is a kind of a representation or a microcosm of some of the startups in this country, and you will see some of these companies never existed 5, 6, 7, 8 years back. Some of these businesses did not exist 5, 6 years back, in terms of, if you look at health tech, for example, none of us would have predicted that it would have been such a big business. Or ed tech, the Byju's or the Upgrads or the Unacademies of the world, which I'm sure all of you are exposed to. These businesses didn't exist. And all of us are enamored by startups. All of us feel that we should go and work in a startup because it's so exciting and it's so much of fun and they're creating something new. In Walkwater, we worked with more than 150 startups in the last 5 years. And we've been exposed to a wide variety of entrepreneurs. We've been exposed to a wide variety of professionals who worked in these startups and who've taken jobs in these startups. Both young people like yourself who've started their journey in a startup, and even more experienced people who moved from a larger company to a startup. And I think it's important to understand a few realities about working in startups before you take up jobs. I'm sure a lot of the startups are queuing up here to hire you and to make offers to you for employment. But I think from my experience, it's important for me to share some of the things to look out for as far as startups are concerned. Clearly, working in a startup needs a completely different mindset. If you are, you need to internalize that it is a very different culture from what you might might look for. So for example, I was speaking with some of your colleagues outside, and one person got placed in Accenture, one person got placed in Deloitte. Startups are very different than Accenture and Deloitte. A lot of them are unstructured. A lot of them are filled with ambiguity and chaos. Secondly, please don't go by what you see. A lot of the startups in India are brilliant at portraying and visibility. I don't mean to disparage them. Some of them are my best friends and also large clients of mine. But please don't go by just what you see. It's not always what you get. There is a lot of difference between, there's a lot of slip between the cup and the lip, as they say. And mainly, don't get enamored by funding or by aura. I know a lot of you watch Shark Tank. It's it's a very popular program. I don't watch it because I fundamentally believe that there's a lot of BS going on there. But having said that, I think a lot of us get enamored by the aura and by the halo around some of the investors and the startup founders. Please avoid that. Have the realistic questions when you're joining a startup. Join for the right reasons. Do not join a startup because the founder is a well-known person. You'll rarely get to see that person when you join. Do not join because they've just raised $2 billion in funding. It might not necessarily impact your role and your career. But join for the right reasons. Join, ask what your role is, ask who are the people that you're going to work with, what is the job that you will be doing. Prepare for ambiguity and surprises. Suddenly the startup might say, we are closing this division. Suddenly they'll say, we are moving away from this product. Suddenly they'll say, the engineering budget for this has been shut. What do you do? So prepare for ambiguity and surprises. If you like stability and predictability, please stay far away. Join an Accenture and a Deloitte. Don't join a startup. Be clear on goals and ask tough questions. So I think even when you join a startup, I know they are the ones who are asking you questions when they're hiring you. But as people who are looking at building careers in a particular field and looking at a long-term professional growth, 20 years, 15 years, 20 years, please make sure that you ask tough questions. A little bit on writing a resume. I mean, what's the first thing? I'm sure you have gone through this in various parts, but for us, resumes are bread and butter. We read resumes day in and day out, hundreds of them sometimes. What are the things that we've observed that really attract us to a resume and make us read one resume better than the other? When you apply for a job, very often a company, the first thing that they look at is your resume, right? In terms of what have you studied, what are your interests, and some of the things that we've gleaned from reading hundreds of resumes. I thought it'll be interesting for me to share some of these things with you. These are actual life hacks that you can use, when you're writing a resume. As far as possible, write a concise resume. Don't let it go into 2 or 3 pages. Let it be 1 page. You're just graduating from college, so you don't write achievements of someone who has been working for the last 30 years. So keep it short. Keep it to 1 page as much as possible. Mention a summary statement. What is it that you want to achieve in life? I mean, you can say, I want to be the next Elon Musk, or I want to be the next Bill Gates, but I don't think that you should put in a resume. Keep the summary more realistic. What is it that you want to achieve in a job? What are the things that you want to be exposed to? What are the values that drive you? What is the kind of work that excites you? So write that in your resume. Highlight your achievements in your college. If you've been part of certain groups that have really achieved big things, put that in your resume. Please include your contact details. Don't send PowerPoint resumes. Don't use a complicated resume template. Nobody likes to read them. Definitely not from students who are just looking for a job. Keep it simple as much as possible. Don't include highly personal information. Don't attach your Instagram bio link or your Facebook bio link. Please don't do it. Nobody is at this stage interested in it. And don't include irrelevant hobbies or interests. I went scuba diving in Maldives, or I went for Everest Base Camp. It's okay to have a conversation, but it's not good to put that in your resume. And please don't lie. At least I have seen in my experience of so many years is that 25 to 30% of resumes in India are full of lies. And that's a big number. But it is that's the truth, that 25 to 30% of people, senior professionals, the ones I deal with, lie on their resume. And when you ask them tough questions on, did you actually do this? Did the business actually grow from 500 crores to 1500 crores? Then you really get the real picture. So even at the start of your career, please don't lie on your resume. I know probably there's not much to lie about. When you're starting off your career, maybe the lies increase as you grow in your career. But please don't lie on your resume. And when you go for the interview, please don't go for the interview without reading and preparing. Over the last 5 years, we've been hiring freshers, young students into Walkwater. One of the biggest cribs that I have is people, when I ask them, what do you know about my company? 90% of them say they've not, they give me some story, and I know that they've not even opened the website and read it. And they don't know what my company does, they don't know who my clients are, it's all out there on the website. And people don't even take the trouble of opening the website and reading about the company and its business before coming for the interview, especially college students. So please read about the company and prepare. Understand who the leadership is, understand what the company's values are, and then go and ask tough questions. A little bit about execution disciplines, and I think this is more an open-ended kind of a thoughts that I've put there. So far I've covered a certain career examples, I've covered a little bit about the industry, I've covered a few things about startups and what to look for when you look for careers in startups, what kind of questions to ask, what are some of the things that you need to remember when you work in a startup. This is more what I've learned over my journey as an entrepreneur, my journey as a professional. The first and most important thing I would say is to be present, right? I mean, and what do I mean by being present? Being present in the moment, being present in your job, being present in the work that you do, in the relationships that you're in. I think it's essential that all of us are present in that particular situation, and that is only what makes people succeed. How you do anything is how you do everything. So whether it is, polishing your shoes, whether it is packing your bag, whether it is, driving to college, and the kind of attention and focus that you put in that, the same thing will come in your work. And I have seen successful professionals, very successful professionals, giving it their all in every small activity that they do, whether it is, waking up in the morning and running, and the same kind of passion and energy comes to the work that they do as well. Have a big goal, but focus on the everyday tasks. Incremental improvements lead to spectacular results. If you improve in your life 1% a day, at the end of the year, you've improved, hundreds of percentage. So it's important that you put in the incremental improvements every day. Build and sustain long-term relationships. Sometimes this is the only thing that will make or break your life. And I've seen in my own experience that the people who give me work today, my clients, and the candidates whom I can place, are the people with whom I've built long-term relationships over 2 decades. It's not what I know, it's not how hard I work, it's sometimes just the relationships that I have built with people over the last so many years that have contributed to my successful journey. And sometimes the wrong relationships have also contributed to my failures. So it's extremely important, the kind of relationships that you build. I think all of us are a sum of the 5 or 6 people we spend the most time with. So choose your relationships wisely. What you choose to work on and who you choose to work with is much more important than how hard you work. So again, hard work is important, but the products that you choose, the companies that you choose, the people that you choose is much more important than how hard you work. And we can debate this. Clearly, one of the things that was taught to us when we started our careers was to go with the herd, right? And that's why I tell more and more people nowadays, embrace your funk, right? I mean, if you are a certain kind of person, you have certain eccentricities, you have a certain personality, embrace it. I mean, it doesn't, the corporate world doesn't look at herd mentality anymore. The kind of companies that you will work for are extremely appreciative of diversity, inclusivity, and it's time for all the youth to really embrace themselves and then go out there in the corporate world and shine. Please remember at every time of your career that there are no adults. You know, all of us are, are making it up as we go along. Some of the stuff that we are doing on a daily basis, we are all making it up. We are all, so figure it out and do it. You know, don't get enamored by the spotlight effect. Not everybody is looking at you all the time. There are so many other things that people are doing. Compete with yourself and collaborate with others. I think it's very often we kind of, compete with others all the time. We are not collaborating, and that leads to us not developing stronger relationships as we build our careers. The institute is important, but work is different. I think you'll realize that the halo around the institute goes away in the first 5 to 10 years, 5 to 6 years. If you're from an IIT, IIM, great, but you'll see that a lot of the people who are more successful have not necessarily gone to the Ivy League colleges in India or outside. Some of them are even dropouts. Some of them are, from mid-tier colleges. It's important to do well in your education, but it's much more important to do the hard yards as you work across your career every single day. I'm going to end with this. And there are a couple of things that I'd like to leave you with. Stop worrying about things that you can't control. I think this is something that I live by on a day-to-day basis. There are so many things that you and I can't control on the economy, the stock markets, what happens in in larger companies in terms of layoffs, what are some of the talent trends that are happening around us, how skill sets changed. We can't really control that. So focus on the things that all of us can control. I can control how I think. I can control how I live my everyday life. I can control the things that I can improve on a day-to-day basis. So focus on the things that you can control. Stop worrying about the things that you can't. Very importantly, be inspired by but not awed by leaders. I think the mistakes that even we all made in our initial journeys in life, we get overawed by leaders. In the corporate world, that happens very often. You see a CEO who's very inspirational. You see a leader who's very inspirational. You get awed by that person. Now, what that does to you is that you forget your rational thinking. You forget asking questions. You forget looking at the details in a company and a business. You forget thinking about your own career in that company. You just want to follow that leader because that person is so awe-inspiring. It just stops making you think rationally. Be inspired by leaders, but not awed by them. And I think when we are starting in our career, if there's one thing that I would like to leave you by, it's this, that ask the hard questions, even from really inspirational leaders. And respect. Very often, I think across our career journeys, if we are doing well in our career journey, we forget that there is that there's a certain respect that we need for, this is an unequal society. India is still a very unequal society. There are people who are still struggling in their life. Some of us here in this room are more privileged with education and with opportunity. If you look around, there are a lot of people who don't have that. So I think it's important for us to respect that, to respect diversity, to respect, a society that is still very unequal, and mold our lives accordingly, mold our careers accordingly. This is something that you will see in a lot of very successful leaders. They're aware of the situations around them, they're aware of the social inequality around them, and they mold their behaviors and their careers accordingly. Believe in a power above. Not always everything is in our control. and be inspired constantly by people around you, by experiences that you share, and most importantly, understand that, you know, we will live 70, maybe 70, 75 years. We are nothing in in an era of, let's say, 50 billion years. So do your best and have fun along the way as you build your careers, as you build your growth paths, as you join companies where you will learn and enjoy and meet interesting people. Remember to have fun. I'm sure all of you are doing that already. But even as you work and as you are exposed to various experiences, make sure that that is an element of your life that never goes away, because life is short. Thanks, thank you, and happy to answer any specific questions that you might have on what I have presented, even something that I have not spoken about in my journey as an entrepreneur or as an executive search professional. If there's anything that I can help you with, please ask me any questions that you have. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir, for an eye-opening session. I request sir to take a seat here so we can open the floor for Q&A. Audience, please note that we are open the floor for Q&A. If you have a question, please raise your hands and the volunteers will bring the mic over to you. Thank you.
Hello, sir. I'm Sandhya Sharma.
Hi, Sandhya.
So my question is, you have been in executive search industry for so many years. So are there any, like from your view, are there any hiring practices in India that has evolved over the years? And are there any important attributes which you felt that were insignificant earlier but are very relevant now?
Yeah. Thank you, Sandhya. That's a very, very good question. I'll answer the second one first. I think when over the years, one of the biggest changes that I have seen is that people give much more importance to respect for diversity and ability to collaborate and work together. So the importance of emotional intelligence, or EQ, has become much, much more in terms of hiring than it was before. So now when you look at hiring people, so earlier you never asked anybody about how they would treat, what are their experiences in terms of working with a diverse set of employees, what is their company's policy on diversity. You never asked these things to people or leaders, because we never even thought about them when we started off, frankly. But now the overall acceptability of diversity in senior professionals is extremely important, and that's one of the key elements that I have seen when companies are hiring leaders. So any leader who is comfortable working with a diverse set of people and inspiring them has much more chance of getting hired and succeeding in that job than someone who is extremely successful but who is not comfortable with diversity. So that's one of the big changes that I have seen. As far as hiring practices are concerned, I think the usage of technology and data to really arrive at the right hiring decision is something that has that is a big change. There wasn't much technology in hiring before. There wasn't much data being used in hiring before. But now more and more companies are using data and data analytics and technology to make the right hiring calls. So that's one of the other big trends that I have seen in the last few years. Of course, LinkedIn has been a big game changer. And I think it's the access to talent that LinkedIn has given is something that is that is one of the biggest path-breaking initiatives in hiring over the last 10 years. The hiring era is really pre-LinkedIn and post-LinkedIn in that sense. Yeah. Thank you, Sandhya. Yeah. Good afternoon.
This was a recent news that a Google HR was laid off in the middle of the interviewing a candidate for a job post, and also famous companies like Meta and Goldman Sachs laying off employees due to a recession triggering in the global economy. Are the HR jobs also at stake too?
Um, I think, you can't generalize which jobs are at stake. That is really dependent on businesses, that is really dependent on specific economies. Layoffs are happening because companies got funded with a lot of money and they hired more and more people for building newer and newer businesses. So layoffs will happen, and it's not restricted to a particular function. It's not restricted to HR or finance, or it's not restricted to technology or engineering or product or marketing. So layoffs will happen, and but I think it's a cyclical thing, right? Companies overhire, they lay off. Maybe companies should have been smarter about it, but I can also say that candidates should have been smarter about it, because a lot of the senior professionals, or even people starting their careers, weren't so humble about companies hiring them. Someone was getting, let's say, 10 lakhs, and if there was a company that was hiring, they wanted 30 lakhs because they had 5 or other offers. So it is as much the candidate population to blame as much as the companies are to blame. It's not only the companies, let's face that. It's also the candidates and senior professionals who took undue advantage of that boom time when hiring happened, when the boom time in hiring happened a few months ago. So both parties are to blame. But it will taper down in the next few months.
Hello. Morning, sir.
Hi.
Very
Hi.
simple question. What are those 3 things, according to you, that made Mr. Harold D'Souza Mr. Harold D'Souza? Thank you.
Okay. I really don't know how to answer this. You'll have to ask my wife. So, frankly, I don't know. I mean, it's just a consistency of approach. So look, I have done this. Constantly now for the last 25 years, right? And I've done this consistently, and I've improved. I would like to believe that I've improved in this every single day. I pay a lot of attention to my work every day. It's pretty much something that consumes me. I'd like to believe that I wake up every day and say I want to be the best at this field in whatever I do and the various elements at it. And I pay a lot of attention to the various technicalities of my work. So whether it is assessment, whether it is understanding businesses, whether it is understanding companies, interacting with people, interviewing skill sets. So all the various technicalities of my business, I pay a lot of attention to them. And I take them as seriously today as I took them when I started my career. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is, I take care of my mental and physical health. I don't get flustered by a lot of the stuff that happens around me. I don't discuss politics with anyone. I am not part of any WhatsApp groups of my engineering college where they are pro PM or anti PM. I just don't get distracted by any of that BS. I just focus on what makes me, do things every day. So if it's not in my control, I don't worry about it. That's the second thing. And the third thing is that I am very choosy about the kind of people I want to spend my time with. So family, friends, I pick and choose the kind of people who influence my thinking, who influence my my responses, and my reactions to day-to-day life. So those are the 3 things, yeah. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name? Mayank. Hi, Mayank. Yeah. Okay. 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 I don't, thank you, Mayank. Thanks for the question. I don't think there's a unique CV as such. It is what fits that role at that particular point of time. But there are a few things that certainly attract you to a CV. There's a clarity of thought. I would say the first thing that I look for is a clarity of thought when I read a CV, right? If I feel that that person has kind of digressed too much while writing the CV, and there's too much information put there. In some places there are numbers, in some places there are no numbers. When I say numbers, I'm talking about data in terms of what they have, how they have grown in their career, what kind of contributions they've made to business. If I see that, if I see that there is no consistency in a CV, then it reflects a lack of clarity of thought. For me, that is a clear, no, I won't look at that. I also see, at least for persons who are starting off in their life, if they have put in highly irrelevant information, or if they have put in completely, goals that are very ambitious and not realistic, then to me that's someone who might not fit into my company, because what we do is a brass tacks, brick and mortar business. There's a lot of rigor involved in our business. There's lots of hard work. So if someone writes in their CV saying, I want to come and change the world, and that doesn't work for me. So there's no great CV. I'll just say that you need to be consistent. You need to exhibit a clarity of thought, and you need to be concise. That's all there is to it. It's important that it should be a reflection of your personality, but it should not be a social media post. Yeah. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir,
Oh, hi.
I'm Nandini. So
Sorry, I
have
didn't hear your name. I'm sorry.
Nandini.
Nandini. Hi,
Yeah.
Nandini.
So I have a question. So when it comes to mapping our career in order to plan our future, what is your take on one changing their career trajectory, especially if it is in the complete opposite direction?
That's a very good question. Yeah, so there are a lot of people who've done that, and there are a lot of people who've successfully done that. It's important to know what drives you. It's important to know what are the, what are the, how do I put this? What are the areas, and what is the stuff in your life that drives you? Do you want to, and what are the reasons for which you want to shift your career? Let's say you've got into a bank, maybe it's just too boring for you to work there. That might be your driver to go and join a startup. Or you've joined a startup and you say, that is too chaotic for me to work there. I want to go to a more predictable environment. So first and foremost, you need to understand what is it that drives that career change, and what is it that drives you as an individual to do what you have to do as far as your career is concerned. There are lots of people who have made significant shifts in their career and have been very successful. It's also important as to what is the timing of that shift. If you do that timing, there are some people who, after they have spent, let's say, 25, 30 years of work, they then go and join a farming company, for example, okay? They've worked all their life in a bank, and then they'll say, now I want to do farming and I want to join a farming company. So they completely change their career. There's some people who do it at the, maybe after 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So it's important, the timing is important. And that timing is really driven by what are your drivers to change your career? What is it that will make you happy? What is it that will excite you? What are the motivators? So it's important to understand that. And for that, frankly, you need to think, you need to speak to your mentors. At that particular point of time, there's no easy answer to it. But this economic environment is giving you much more of an opportunity to do that today than was available 10, 15 years earlier. So you can still do that and be successful. Whereas earlier, the risks to doing that were much more. It was not easy for you to completely change your career and then come back to your field of specialization. But now you can do that. Yeah. So take risks. Take risks. They are always rewarded.
Good morning, sir.
Hi.
I'm Lekha.
Hi,
So
Megha.
I wanted to understand what is the vision you have for Walk Waters? Like, where do you see yourself or the company? And adding to that, right now, considering the recession, how does Walk Water contribute to bringing stability? Now, if you see, even high-profile positions are a little shaky because people are laying off and they're quitting and everything. So right now, how does Walk Water contribute to bringing stability to the economy?
Okay, thank you. So where do I see Walkwater? I think we are 12 years old. We started the company, I started the company in 2011. We are now 30 people. We started an office in the US, which we needed to close during COVID because it was a bad situation at that time. So I foresee Walkwater being a large global exec search firm out of India. I am a very, very proud Indian. I think that we haven't created a company like this out of India. There have been people who have tried, and I think Walkwater is a journey to do that. We want to create what is one of the world's best executive search firms out of this country. That is our vision. If you see on our website, we say we will be a world-class institution fulfilling the leadership needs of our clients globally. That is our vision, stated vision. And we will follow that, but we really want to be the first large executive search firm out of India, which will then go global, right? So that's the first. The second is, in terms of recession, look, I don't see any recession in India, let me be honest. There are some, there might be, some triggers here and there, but overall there's no recession here. This is an economy that is booming. I mean, if you look around you, there's a lot of positivity, there's a lot of growth. So there is recession globally, yes. There are headwinds in the US and in other markets, definitely. There are inflationary pressures in a lot of countries, but there's no recession here where we work. How are we contributing? I think, look, what we do, we are a small company, but what we do is extremely important. We help companies find leaders who can then chart the growth path of those companies. And we work with some of the country's biggest groups. We work with some of the country's biggest industrial houses, with some of the country's biggest startups. So we are contributing by spreading positivity, by spreading the energy that is there in the economy here and making people believe that they can make their careers in a lot of new ways that are coming in. So that's what we are doing. Yeah.
Audience, please note, due to the interest of time, we'll be having one last question.
Good afternoon to you, sir. I am Nityanand from BCom Professional.
Hi.
Out of curiosity, I just wanted to know, how does your day look like?
How does my day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Adding on, sir, what is your biggest regret in professional life?
My biggest regret? Okay. It's interesting that you asked the question. So I'll have to make an honest admission here before, yeah. So, what is my day like? I think there are 2-3 things that I kind of do every day. I'm a bit of an early riser. I always have been. I try to get some kind of physical activity every single day, whether it is squash or exercise in the gym or something or the other, some form of physical activity every single day. I read 2 or 3 books at any given point of time. So I pick up books and I would read certain chapters every day. And then I will of course, spend a lot of time with my colleagues. I travel significantly. So I travel across India. I have clients in Bombay, in Delhi. So a lot of travel also takes me all over the country. So I think I am fortunate to have a good support system in my office, which helps me to map my day and to make sure that I do things in the right time. I have a support system around me. My biggest regret, I don't have too many regrets, Mayank. I think the only regret that I have is that I wish I had a professional degree like you guys. I dropped out of college and decided to start my own company. But that was 11 years ago. But even the challenges for me when I dropped out of college in 1997 were very different than they were today. I'm fortunate that I've seen success in spite of the fact that I don't have a professional degree. Many of you might not have that, luck. I think I was lucky more than anything else. That's the only regret I have. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, audience. Sir, I request you to please be on stage. I now request our Faculty Council Coordinator, Dr. Naveen Kumara, to present the memento to our esteemed speaker as a token of appreciation. Thank you, sir. That brings the proceedings for today to a close. We are extremely grateful to our speaker, Mr. Harold D'Souza, for enlightening the way to increase our knowledge, for sharing your insights on establishing and building our career trajectory. Thank you, sir. Thank you to everyone who contributed to the seamless operation of the event, including the management, faculties, faculty coordinator Dr. Naveen Kumara, and Ishan Lat from the organizing committee. And thank you all for being such a great audience. We hope each one of you takes home a new slice of learning for your future endeavors, and that you're one step closer to understanding your paths better. Have a lovely day, and this is Rekha signing off. Thank you.